Good afternoon, and welcome to Maine Public Health Association's monthly webinar series. My name is Becca Bolus, and I'm Executive Director here at MPHA. We host a monthly webinar on the first Thursday of every month, although right now we're in the second Thursday, but usually it's the first Thursday of every month from noon to 1. And these are open to anybody. So we encourage you to follow our calendar and see what we're up to. Today, we are very excited to be joined with Kirsten Brewer, who is Volunteer Maine's Climate Corps coordinator. She's going to provide an overview of the newly established Maine Climate Corps and give us some information about how we can build workforce development and community resilience in service to public health, and how your organizations can take advantage of this really exciting new program. And before I turn it over to Kirsten, I just want to share a brief anecdote about this program, which is that Maine Public Health Association was fortunate to serve as a co-lead of the Maine Climate Council's longest named working group, Community Resilience Planning, Public Health, and Emergency Management Working Group. And we had held a stakeholder engagement meeting, and it was a public meeting, and people could come and give us feedback on our draft recommendations and offer new ideas. And one of the new ideas that was offered was a climate corps. So we thought that was awesome. We included it in our recommendations. And then Representative Riley from Westbrook introduced legislation that would form the climate corps. The bill passed, it's been funded, and now it's a real program. And I love that story because I think it just underscores the importance of engaging in government and engaging when there's an opportunity for public comment. Your comments can lead to a whole program and a staff and excitingness. So I really want to share that because it really is a cool story. And I'm just so excited to hear from Kirsten about the work that she's been doing and about the program, and for all of you to learn about how you can access this awesome new initiative. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my slides. So share. All right. Can you all see my slide? Great. On my desktop. Wonderful.
We see your slides.
Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us through some technical difficulties. I'm Kirsten Brewer, Maine's Climate Corps coordinator. And yeah, I'm going to share a little bit of background to build off of what Becca just mentioned about how the Climate Corps was created, and then share some opportunities for public health organizations to get involved with the Climate Corps. Then I hope we have plenty of time for questions. And if there's time, I hope to also ask you all some questions, because you are the experts in public health, and that's not where I have expertise. And I think we can learn a lot from each other. So great. So let's move forward. Yes. So the next slide. If you're not familiar with Volunteer Maine, my office, we are the Maine Commission for Community Service. We're an office in state government with commissioners appointed by the governor. We're 25 commissioners who oversee our work, and 8 staff members. Our mission is to foster and inspire community service and volunteerism to address the most critical needs in the state of Maine. So we're working on a lot more than just Climate Corps. I definitely encourage you to check out our website to learn more about other programs that we offer. I think we're most well known for funding AmeriCorps in the state, and we've been doing that for close to 30 years now, and that intersects with Climate Corps, but we have a lot more initiatives beyond just the federal AmeriCorps program. All right. So yeah, a little background on Maine Climate Corps. Like Becca mentioned, Climate Corps was a recommendation in Maine's Climate Action Plan out of the work of the Climate Council in 2020. And what's interesting, I think, is it was a recommendation of 2 subcommittees, both the Community Resilience Subcommittee, and it's a longer name than just that, but the Community Resilience Committee and the Energy Committee. So I think that speaks to how the founding principles or the founding direction of the program span many focus areas in climate action. And we have a lot of needs with climate action, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for the Climate Corps to be involved. Ultimately, the Climate Corps was recommended in Strategy H, engaging Maine's people. So that core principle in the creation of the Climate Corps is about giving opportunities for people to serve, to take climate action and get involved. And also opportunities to create short-term volunteer opportunities for others to just increase community engagement and community involvement across the board for folks who might be full-time or might be in a part-time capacity getting involved in their community. So like Becca mentioned, the legislature got to work with the Climate Action Plan and introduced legislation to make things a reality. The first action they took in 2021 was asking Volunteer Maine to do a study to envision what the Climate Corps would look like, how it should be structured, what priorities might be. I've lost, we're really energy efficient in this state, but you'll just look at my screen, ignore me in the darkness. Yeah, so we published that report in January 2022. I can share that link in the chat or as materials, after the webinar, so you can review that full report. And Representative Morgan Riley took that report and made some recommendations on legislation, formally creating the Maine Climate Corps in statute that passed and was signed by the governor just about a year ago. And at that time, they also allocated some modest funding for a pilot program, about $200,000. I think it's important to note that the backdrop of our conversation at that time at the state level was a national conversation about the civilian climate corps. So President Biden had proposed in his Build Back Better plan that the civilian climate corps would be a labor investment to implement climate action and recovery from COVID, but ultimately that was not included in the final IRA. So states like Maine across the board are forging ahead, doing our own thing. We'll stay tuned to see what happens at the federal level, but that was a parallel conversation with Climate Corps. So what is Climate Corps? We've talked a little bit about its origins, sort of some of the key goals and founding principles, but what do we really mean by that? What's that going to look like in Maine? In Maine, our recommendation in the report was that we don't just have one singular program run by a central state agency, but that we actually have an umbrella project. So the Maine Climate Corps network. The legislation authorized Climate Corps to operate in 8 different focus areas. So it's quite broad, from energy to public health to education and transportation. It makes sense in Maine to not have one agency operating in all these spaces, but to have agencies with expertise in that area run those specific programs. They'll be coordinated by our office. There will be common criteria and standards that core programs need to live up to, but they'll be independently operated across the state. A core value, a big takeaway I want to make sure everyone's aware of with Climate Corps, if you don't remember anything else, I think something that sets us apart from other workforce development programs or employment programs is that all of our programs at Volunteer Maine strive to achieve the triple bottom line of service. So number one, the target need is met. So there's direct climate action. People are educated about tick-borne illness. Homes are weatherized. Some direct change in the world, alleviating a problem. The second benefit is to the person who serves. So the member serving will gain training, gain appropriate credentials, will get on-the-job experience and increase their network, and they'll have personal and professional growth that will serve them in whatever's next, whether that's a lifetime career in climate action or some other pathway. They'll be better for it for having that service year experience. The third benefit, I think, is a little hidden, but really critical to all the programs we offer here at Volunteer Maine. We require a lot of community voice in all the programs design and community volunteerism component. So, the members are out weatherizing homes, and they also work alongside a group of volunteers for a day of caring who also contribute to the project. When you have the community involved in your project, helping to design it, helping to implement it, everyone is stronger for that. If the core program ends and leaves, you have some systems in place so that the activity could continue. And also, studies show that civic engagement and volunteerism in a community results in that community bouncing back faster from disasters, whether that's an economic disaster, public health disaster, natural disaster. So that's a really critical piece of all the programs that we offer with Volunteer Maine and the Climate Corps. So funding. So, we have this Climate Corps network. different programs operated independently, coordinated together. The funding piece, so I mentioned last year, 2022, the legislature allocated some funding. We released that in a grant to Down East Community Partners, a community action program, to pilot a program this year focused on energy efficiency. That was not a lot of funding, so it was just a one-year opportunity. We're staying tuned to see what other funding opportunities there will be from the state, but that's it at this point. Because of that limited funding, our office is primarily directing programs to the AmeriCorps grant program. We administer that program here in the state. It has a focus on environmental stewardship, so that's an opportunity for a group to start a new Service Corps program or expand a Service Corps into our climate action goals. Climate Corps, though, I would say it's funding agnostic. I'm also on the lookout for other federal or state funding opportunities that might support our goals. And program could join the Climate Corps network, become an official Climate Corps program with their own funding that they bring. I recognize that's challenging, not necessarily realistic, but there's just opportunities for a lot of different collaboration, really, folks to come from different places in the sector with different levels of support to implement a project that's really suitable for their local community. So Climate Corps and public health. You all are really the experts on this, so you could probably tell me a lot more about what appropriate Climate Corps service activities would look like in the public health space. But some things that occur to me, just sort of as a layperson, more from the environmental sector background, I think about challenges we have in Maine around tick-borne illness, brown-tail moth, and other pests that are exacerbated by climate change, air quality issues, and how we might need help with air quality monitoring. Thinking about heat-related illness and how we have to set up systems and support people as this is an increasing challenge in the summer. Or thinking about preparing and dealing with natural hazards that are increasing due to climate change. Some of our work around energy efficiency, I think, overlaps with some health issues. If you're in the home weatherizing, maybe you're also checking to see if they need a ramp or other accessibility supports or other things to stay safe and healthy and age in place in their home. Walkable, active communities contribute to our climate goals and contribute to public health goals. Promoting local food is a big focus, is a goal of the Climate Action Plan. We want to grow more food here in Maine that stays in Maine for people to eat. And, that's good, local, healthy, fresh food. Another way to look at how Climate Corps could have a positive impact on public health is thinking about a program design that's really intentional and who is serving. So thinking about seniors as maybe your target audience to be in service, and by getting out in the community and volunteering and staying engaged with people, they maintain their health and improve their health. We've been talking a little bit in our office about the Surgeon General's recent declaration around social isolation as such and loneliness as this epidemic in America. And I really strongly believe that service programs and volunteer opportunities are a key strategy to help us overcome that. People from a lot of different backgrounds are dealing with loneliness, and how do we create opportunities for them to get more engaged? I think it's helpful to think about what is possible by looking at other models across the country. There's over 30 or almost 30 years of AmeriCorps experience nationwide, plus many years of Conservation Corps programs or VISTA programs. And I think looking at other models, we could think about replicating them here in Maine or adapting them to the Maine context. Just helps make something a little more real. So just some examples I looked up that might intersect with the public health space. There was a project called the Resilience AmeriCorps VISTA project that placed folks in 10 different cities across the US to focus on increasing civic engagement and community resilience. And in Phoenix, they were focused on planting trees, leading workshops, and raising awareness of cooling centers. And the Cooling Center project was interesting. They engaged with local Boy Scout troops who helped them with getting the word out, and were those local volunteers adding capacity to the project. The Heading Home Corps program is in Minnesota that's focusing on the unhoused population and placing members in nonprofits and shelters to help be a navigator and connect people with social supports and different resources. The Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe AmeriCorps program has a focus on emergency management. So members are placed with their emergency management office to help with disaster preparation, community training, and some direct service. Just a small sampling of many, many programs that are out there around the country. A concern I hear, a question I hear is about, recruitment right now. It's a challenge to recruit for many different positions. This is a reality. It's also a challenge right now to recruit for AmeriCorps. We recognize that. I don't think Climate Corps is just a silver bullet where people are just going to flood into Maine to take these positions. But I do think with an investment in recruitment and being intentional, there's a lot of opportunity. I do think we will be able to fill positions. And that's, I think, because taking climate action, I think, is really attractive to a lot of people right now. A lot of people from different backgrounds. In particular, young people are very interested in this. Last year, a national group did a survey, and they found that of their respondents, they focused on young people, 65% of them care about climate change, but do not know what they can personally do to take action. It's like, there's an opportunity. Let's create a position for them to step into so they can personally take action and truly make a difference. When I talk to young people in Maine, they're really interested in this. They want to personally get involved and get their hands dirty and make a difference. I've heard that people interested in public health are asking about environmental health positions and see that intersection, and that could be an attractive entry point maybe to a career in public health, starting with their environmental interest and building from there. I also want to acknowledge, a challenge over the years is that the AmeriCorps program and Service Corps programs don't offer high wages. They're not jobs, they're service positions, and the living allowance is meant to help people sustain themselves while in service, but is meant to be 1 year. It's not meant to be, a career or profession. But Volunteer Maine recognizes the challenge too for a lot of folks. And for the programs we fund through AmeriCorps and Climate Corps, we require at least the minimum wage as the base for the living allowance for full-time members. And we encourage and welcome programs to go higher than the minimum wage. In AmeriCorps rules, currently, folks are allowed to pay up to $35,000 annually for a position. That's the maximum living allowance you can earn. The reality is the grants aren't large enough to fully cover $35,000 per person, but if a group can raise outside resources, there's opportunities there to give people more support to make that opportunity available to more people. And programs are welcome to do things like provide housing or other benefits to make it easier for people to serve and come to Maine or stay in Maine to give back. Want to mention just a couple starting points for organizations. If this is piquing your interest and you're thinking, we really want to be a part of this, this aligns with our mission. A great starting point for any organization is to assess and build your volunteer management capacity. I know if we're talking about Climate Corps and full-time service positions, now I'm switching to community volunteers, but we believe that strong volunteer management practices are a strong foundation for future service programs. So if you've already done the work to incorporate the community and community volunteers into your organization, you're going to be better served to support full-time people. You've done the work to make policies on volunteer participation and time tracking and other systems that will aid you as you bring on a full program. And as a general point, even if you don't go on to participate in AmeriCorps Climate Corps, you have a stronger volunteer program, which benefits everybody. We offer some training and professional development for volunteer managers and organizations who want to do that work and take that focus. Another option, the next kind of step up on the ladder of engagement, is to host a member through an existing program. So there are existing positions through AmeriCorps and other programs for a service year where you can be the host site and someone on a team can help meet the team's goals around climate action in partnership with your site and help your site deliver on your mission. Unfortunately, we don't have programs across every sector or every geographic area of Maine, but we're working on it, and you're always welcome to reach out to see what opportunities there are, and it's good information for me to know about your needs as we develop more programs. The next step to host a Climate Corps program, to sponsor a Climate Corps program and really dive in, is to apply for an AmeriCorps grant. For programs operating in Maine, you apply through our office, and we work with you to develop a model to tackle the challenge you've identified. And it's a great opportunity to align an AmeriCorps project with the climate action goals that we have in service of your mission and the work you're doing. Now is a great time to talk to us. We have competitions. The next competitions, there's going to be likely something in summer and definitely in fall. And, it is a federal grant program, so we recommend reaching out really early. Now is a great time to be in touch, and we can talk to you about your idea, see if this is a good fit, and work with you to develop something that might be fundable by the federal agency. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and try to turn the lights on as well. Excuse me, and I can take some questions. Yeah.
That was great. Thank you. I'll give you a minute to turn the lights on.
Off. I hadn't moved in the right place in the office.
It's pretty funny.
Our one energy efficient feature in this building here at state government. But
that's great. Well, that was great. Thank you so much for that overview. It was really helpful, I think, to add even more context to where it came from. What does the program look like and the different ways that somebody who's in that position could be serving communities, and then to think about how if an organization's interested, they can get involved. So if folks have questions, I think we're small enough that you could, certainly put it in the chat, but you also can just raise your hand. I do have some questions from registrations from last week that I'm going to ask you. But does anyone here have any questions right now? Yeah, Becky.
Yeah, hi, I'm Becky DeCoyster. I'm with the Climate and Health Program at the Maine CDC. So we are working on one of our kind of project activity groups is around extreme heat and cold right now. So, you've got my little brain swirling and twirling. What is the range of grant funding? Because case in point, we are working with county EMA directors to either create or help them revise and update their extreme temperature plans. And as part of our information gathering with each of these counties, we often run across, a group that's really passionate and interested in, I don't know, turning a park into a park splash pad or something, but they don't have the funding. And so I guess I'm curious what the range of grant amounts is.
That's a great question. Yeah. A good way to think about our AmeriCorps grant programs and really all of our Service Corps grant programs is they're an award of people. So if a community or a coalition already has funding for a project and you need more hands,
you need
So a strong project for something like let's take our Conservation Corps here in the state. AmeriCorps is able to fund the salary to pay the people, the living allowance to pay the people, but Conservation Corps leverages other resources for their tools and their gravel and their whatever. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
The scope of a project, something that's focused on planning and community engagement is going to have a lot lower cost than planting trees.
Right. Yeah. So, I was interested by the work with the tribes on their emergency management plans too. I'd be curious to learn more about that. But thank you. Thank you. This is very interesting. So.
Randy, did you have a question?
I wonder what the range of projects and organizations that you're working for. I'm on the board of directors for a small nonprofit called the Community Housing Improvement Program. And there's a person who we sort of work with tangentially, and we're talking about like a tiny house village for transitional housing. And, we could use a program or a project coordinator who organized volunteers and maybe had a little construction experience. And, we also have a fuel assistance program where, they could, be learning about sort of community interaction and all that stuff by doing some of that. I wonder if that's kind of an appropriate thing. It's sort of climate change. It's not also, you know, it's also sort of direct services. So.
Yeah. So big picture, what comes to mind is around housing. Yes, we're really interested in getting a program going focused on housing, both around climate and around other needs. You know, our Volunteer Maine's mission is bigger than climate, but one specific area that intersects with climate is the energy efficiency programs in the state have to turn many people away because their homes are in such disrepair, they don't qualify for weatherization. So what if we had a program?
I was visiting those people last week.
Yeah.
Like, they won't give me a furnace, or they won't put a well in, and they won't put me any insulation. I'm like, I think that's probably good. So that's about to fall down.
Yeah, and I know probably like organizations like yours and others, we have a lot of scrappy small nonprofits who are doing that home repair on a really local basis, like the Habitat for Humanity model, and other groups do that. But imagine if we had a team maybe that traveled around the state. They had, you know, technical supervision and training and just deployed and came in, and 5 or 10 people did some of that basic home repair. Like, you'd immediately see benefits for folks. And it would make them eligible to move up on these waiting lists that are so important. And, you know, maybe the group's also building a ramp or helping to set the thermostat or change light bulbs that someone's, you know, not able to do some of that basic stuff that might help them save energy. I think there's models out there, like Habitat for Humanity's definitely used AmeriCorps members nationally for a long time. So finding a partner who would like to run this program and provide that training and technical assistance to make sure the members are prepared and doing good work would be key. But I think we're really interested in that. And I think there could be something, not sure who the lead is, you know, maybe it's folks in the technical education space who have that expertise, but it could contribute to, you know, our workforce development, because people would graduate with some really great skills.
I actually have that technical expertise.
Oh, well, we should talk.
We should.
Yeah.
And the things that you just described, our CHIP has been doing since the 80s.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood, everything from, we have a core group of volunteers who goes out and they'll do these things. We have once a year, we have about 120 people who show up for a day or two of service. So we are keeping people in the structures that they've got.
So important. Yeah. It's so valuable. And imagine, what could we do, you know, maybe for areas of the state that don't have organizations like that, deploy some of these teams of Climate Corps members, or use the Climate Corps members as like project leads to help you with volunteer engagement, recruitment. One immediate option that comes to mind for your organization might be the AmeriCorps Vista program. We don't oversee Vista in our office, but, you know, work closely with those folks. Vista is somewhat limited because it's focused on organizations that have a poverty alleviation mission. Sounds like that would fit for your group. And they're focused on building capacity for that organization. So building new volunteer systems, fundraising, developing, you know, pilot projects and other resources. So I'm happy to share some referrals to that program after the fact.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The slide that you put up with all of the public health related activities. So I come from a university setting and a public health practice background. And what that slide is just screaming to me is community health worker outreach. And I wonder if you know of any models where Climate Corps could have used community health workers to do outreach in communities for, you know, tick-borne illnesses, or now brown-tail moth and heat-related. I mean, you could just go down the line, or even just climate preparedness. I'm always working with my students on my planetary health module on, you know, the best time to work with families, individuals and communities on mitigating the untoward effects of climate change is before the disaster occurs, right? But that's so difficult to do because
Yes.
people aren't focused on it until the emergency is in full swing.
Yeah.
So the question is really, have you seen models where community health workers are partnered with organizations?
Yes, definitely. I think we used to have an AmeriCorps program. It was nationwide and they operated in Maine as well. That was the community health worker model where they finished service with credentials, certifications in that area and were, placed in the community and host sites to do that work. Yeah. So, and I think there are many around the country implementing that model around maybe a specific focus area or more general. I'm seeing a lot of programs that have just been focused on the COVID-19 pandemic, vaccinations, awareness. And actually, I didn't go into detail about it, but the AmeriCorps agency has a partnership with the US CDC right now to fund AmeriCorps public health programs. I don't know if they're going to run another competition in the fall or if the funding is out, but it's more for public health positions. There's even more funding than traditional AmeriCorps positions right now. And I think many are using that community health worker model. So there's many applications we could read and think about how to replicate them here. Yeah. Who do you think, I'll ask you, Paula, who do you think, what would be the appropriate host site or venue for a project like that in Maine? Who would be the partners to bring in?
I'm not a long-term Maine resident, so I'm not, and I moved here in the middle of the pandemic. So I've been a little bit isolated in some ways. What about the community action agencies, though? That comes to mind, because they're all around the state. So, and they seem to be really engaged with communities. That's one idea.
Yeah.
Is there a Maine Community Health Workers Association? I've worked in Connecticut recently, and there's a Connecticut Community Health Workers Association, and I was actually on the task force that developed certification for the state. So
I don't know about an association. There very well could be. I don't know, but I know there is a community health worker initiative that's led by MCD Global. So that might be a place to start. And to Randy's point, there could absolutely be a association here. I don't know.
I bet if you don't know about it, there's not one here, but I'll ask Google.
I did work in Colorado once very early in my career, where the Department of Health actually utilized a community health worker model with migrant farm workers, pairing them with a community health nurse. I was the community health nurse partnered with the community health workers. So I know that there is the possibility. I wonder if DHHS, Becky, might embrace the idea of a community health worker grant under Maine CDC.
Well, I have a meeting this afternoon where I'm going to be around several of them, so I could float that idea. It's not a bad idea.
We love collaboration, and I'll mention for all of our grants, almost any type of entity is eligible to apply and sponsor the program, barring for-profit businesses. But government agencies, local, state, nonprofits, there's a wide range. And we have a precedent in state government. The Maine Conservation Corps is a state program. They deploy, I'm in the dark again. They deploy teams and they also place members in host sites, both in other state agencies and in community organizations. So there's some models that we can look at.
Yeah. What about the area agencies on aging as well?
Yeah. They've been strong partners for us for sure. And many of these organizations, both the CAPS and the AAAs, definitely have hosted, AmeriCorps Vistas or members from other projects. So I think growing something like a community health worker model with a lead sponsor who wants to hold the program and train and support folks, there's a lot of opportunities for some host site placements.
See, now I have my thinking cap on. So
I love it.
also our new Mainers, many of them are coming with extraordinary skills that are really untapped. So many of them might not be credentialed health professionals in the United States, but might be credentialed health professionals from other countries. That would be, we could put them to great use
So
in a temporary arrangement as a community health worker.
This is an interesting point you raise. And it highlights one of the reasons we're forming the Climate Corps at the state level and seeking funding at the state level. AmeriCorps, to be eligible to be an AmeriCorps member, the federal level, you have to be a citizen, national, or legal permanent resident. There's a whole lot of legal visa statuses that are not allowed to participate, which is a challenge. Climate Corps is a state-funded program. We have more flexibility, and we would invite folks, if they have legal authorization to work in the US, they'd be able to participate. So that's why, state funding is important to help us broaden the opportunities for folks. I do think there could be opportunities for folks maybe who are waiting on a visa and waiting for work authorization to participate as unpaid volunteers. It's important they don't get benefits. It impacts their immigration status, but it's combating that social isolation. It's bringing people into the community. You feel value when you give back. So it's definitely part of the model that we're thinking about. I'm going to try to turn the lights on one moment.
So that kind of connects to a question that was asked last week about eligibility to be a Corps member. It wasn't related to that, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't related to eligibility to work. It was more like, do you need specific skill sets? Are there particular age ranges? Do you have to have a certain education level? What are the criteria to apply to be a Corps member?
Yeah, it's a great question. In general, we work with the programs for them to design positions that meet their need. So it's up to that program sponsor to say, our goals are to do this type of service activity. It's safe and appropriate for people who have a high school diploma. No further credential or other criteria is needed. Another program could say, you need to be at least 21 to participate because you're driving vehicles and it impacts our insurance, for example, or we'd like to see you with at least an associate's or other comparable degree or credential to participate. That being said, while there, I think, it tends to be young people who participate in these programs because that's who is early in their career looking for experience and opportunities. The programs are by no means exclusive to young people. For example, our AmeriCorps, we have a program called Lifelong AmeriCorps that places members in age-friendly communities, and that tends to be retired folks who take those positions. So that's some intentionality around the mission of the project and the design, and creates an opportunity for people who already were volunteering and have time but want to do a more intensive volunteer service and earn a stipend to offset that service. So it's really about, there's a lot of opportunities for just some intentional program design around recruitment and meeting the needs of the community, both those serving and those being served.
And so if somebody wanted to look to see what's out there, are those positions posted on Volunteer Maine's website?
There's some links to get to those positions through our website, but one of the best places to look for existing opportunities is serviceyear.org. It's supposed to be a central platform for AmeriCorps positions, non-AmeriCorps, and that's a good starting place. If anyone has any particular interest or knows someone who wants to serve, feel free to send them my way. We can help match you up with programs. If you don't see something listed, it might be, we just need to send you to the right person and the right, make the right connection for a good placement.
And then So if you have an if you're an organization, you're not somebody looking to be a core member, but you are thinking about participating in this program, what type of time commitment is it? And can they just get one person? Can they share a position? Like, can you talk a little bit about what might be needed on the organization side to do it?
Yeah.
And then related to that, do they work with you on working on a description, or what is that kind of, what's like the nuts and bolts of that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of organizations reach out to me and they need one person, maybe two. They need kind of minimal support at this point. Typically, most cases, we don't assign placements of one people. We don't run the program, but we can refer you to some of our existing programs that might have a good fit, like AmeriCorps Vista. In some cases, maybe Maine Conservation Corps. There's some environmental education service they do, for example. I unfortunately, there isn't a program for every need out there yet, but we'll do our best. From there, kind of the next step up, if there isn't an appropriate program for the one placement, an organization that's large enough or that wants to form a coalition with other organizations might think about sponsoring a full program. And that looks like applying for a grant through us. We provide the funding that covers the basic living allowance to support the member. It does require local resources to fully run the program. You're going to want to invest in a full-time staff person to manage the grant, support the members, build the partnerships. So it is an investment on the part of the sponsoring agency. There are opportunities to, raise funds to support that program, like the host site model. You're the central hub, you're supporting the program, you place members out at different nonprofits in the community, and you might charge a host site fee. They're getting the support of a full-time trained person at probably a lot cheaper than a full-time staff member, but that host site fee can offset some of your expenses and raise revenue for the project. We have a program development officer. So folks want to approach us and talk about their ideas, we can work with you to get ready for a grant competition and think about what might be a good fit in the AmeriCorps model.
I just have one more question. And this isn't, well, I guess it doesn't matter. What are the benefits of using an AmeriCorps volunteer versus hiring somebody or contracting with somebody? Like, what are kind of why is that a more strategic way, I guess, to use resources?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, like I was explaining the process, it's an investment. If you want to sponsor a program or even participate as a host site, you do have to invest. You're paying a host site fee. You're going to be investing in supervision, supporting somebody. They might be an early career professional and might need more support than other folks. But I do return to that triple bottom line of service and thinking, by engaging service in the solution, you're creating a professional and personal development for a person. Maybe it's a way to give back to the field and think about creating entry level positions to attract folks to the whole sector and build a pipeline of folks here in Maine to meet our needs. Also, you're furthering collaboration and partnerships by that community engagement piece. Depending on the task at hand or the mission, maybe contractors are a good fit. Maybe that just delivers on that key action. But perhaps investing a little further in the person who's serving and in your further community engagement roles, it just kind of lifts all boats, kind of takes us higher on multiple goals.
I think that's a really good point. When we were talking about this in our working group, we were also talking about just the multi-sector impacts from climate change, and that a core like this would be able to serve, realtors or support the real estate industry and support resilience planning in communities and helping people figure out, helping towns figure out how to stand up a cooling center or warming center and what are the mechanics there. There's just so many elements to this, and supporting psychological resilience in community members, and what does a program like that look like? Like we talked about just the wide range of impacts felt across all different sectors and all different populations related to climate change. And so the other thing I would imagine with the Corps is that these different industries that have different resources and different needs, they're able to construct with your support a position that can help with a project without necessarily having to invest, given their resources, in a whole new workforce for their industry. Like that's another, I think, element that I remember us discussing in our working group as one of the benefits of such a Corps. Yeah.
I mean, we have huge workforce needs, and anything we can do to attract people to Maine, keep people in Maine, get them engaged. Our data for the last 5 or 10 years so of AmeriCorps members in Maine, about half of them come from away to serve here, and then about half of those folks stay at the end of service and settle in the community. And it's great. You've attracted someone who is particularly civically engaged, who goes on to volunteer in the community, serve on a board, and just is engaged and connected. It's like just the type of folks we want to cultivate here, plus in the specific sector and in the jobs. But also, that cross-sector engagement is so cool. It's such a privilege to get to do this job. And I have more of a background in land conservation, and forestry is probably like my strength. And I'm learning so much about energy efficiency and public health, and they intersect. And it's really cool to get folks from across sectors in the same room to talk to each other. And I think Climate Corps members can help us do that. They can be like manifestation of that collaboration and cross-sector work.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any other questions from folks? And did you have some questions you wanted to ask them, or do you feel like those have already been kind of answered?
We kind of did. Well, I'd be curious to hear from you all or anyone, like what are some specific workforce needs you're seeing in public health, or maybe what was your own pathway? Did you go to school thinking public health is it and continued on that path, or what were some entry points that we can help think about cultivating in programs we create?
For me, it was the pandemic, so I don't think we want to cultivate that.
No.
But I think what was so appealing about that response was exactly what you're talking about. It's the community coming together to support one another, and I think if you're a person that that is a plus for, then this is a great program. I'm just mentally ticking through our projects and the conversations we've had, thinking about folks I can point this way.
Great.
So.
It's also very exciting to always collaborate across state offices. I've only been in my position a year. We're very siloed, and so it's exciting when we get to work with colleagues working on many different issues.
Well, I come from a professional nursing background, and I can tell you that a pivotal experience I had was in nursing school when I had my rotation through public health nursing, and that made all the difference. It was, maybe 14 weeks or something, and it left such a strong impression on me. I tried various things, and I always kept returning to the community in a public health approach. I went to the NIH right out of college, and instead of focusing on, the heavy inpatient clinical research, which I did, but I went right to the Whitman Walker Clinic and did a community-based project with them. So I think that these sorts of experiences that young people can have, getting them into the community and having them engage directly with community members and with communities at large, can really make an impression on them. And I've never left that population-based orientation behind.
Nice.
through all of the iterations of,
Yeah.
the many decades of this career that I've pursued. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when it boils down to it, it was that very first rotation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm reminded that I've heard from colleagues in other sectors related to climate action that some of the professionals coming out of undergrad programs don't necessarily come with strengths in community engagement and community outreach, and thinking about cultivating opportunities for them to practice their science, to practice their craft, their trade, while getting that community engagement piece can really benefit them no matter what job they're going to go into, whether it's the private sector or the public sector, education, whatever it is. It's just, it gives you a holistic view often of issues when you got to communicate to everyone about them, and just practice that soft skill of, going to town halls, hosting meetings, knocking on doors, and just talking to people. It's a very valuable skill. Yeah.
And just to punctuate the point, I mean, really, we're moving towards population health. I'm working on developing a new population health course. Now I'm in academia. It's been a long and winding road, but we're moving farther away from acute care. We're looking more broadly at how people live and how they're experiencing their health in their homes and in their communities.
Yeah.
And the climate and the environment is becoming more dominant in how they're living their life, healthfully or not. It's affecting the quality of their lives, and the way that we live also affects the earth, and then the way that we're affecting the earth is affecting our health, and that's the concept of planetary health, which is what the concept that I teach. And so I'm so glad that you're doing this work and taking that broad perspective. It's really super important. And that wasn't supposed to be a plug for that book. It's just the plug for taking a real population-based approach to everything that we're doing.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you all for your really important work. I know we have a lot of challenges in Maine. And yeah, I know everyone's doing all they can to keep people safe and healthy and improve our state.
We have about 5 minutes left. Any other reflections or questions or comments? Kirsten, do you want to put your email in the chat? That way everybody has it in case they want to follow up with you.
Yeah.
And Kristen, I put my email in the chat to you, so if you want to follow
Yes,
up.
I copied that. Yeah, I will definitely follow up. Yeah, and always, feel free to be in touch, and making connections. I'm happy to talk to other groups you're involved with, and we love to get on the road and get out of Augusta, meet people where they are. So we appreciate that.
I have a couple of organizations in mind I think that would be great for you to connect with. So
nice.
I'll share this webinar with them, but it may also, I think sometimes it's helpful to have that interaction, direct questions related to an organization and what that organization's scope is. And so
sounds good.
Well, this is great. Thank you for rescheduling so quickly from last week. I'm really sorry again about the technical challenges. Thrilled that all of you were able to join us today. Thank you for being available and being here. And to those that are watching the recording, thank you for watching the recording. This is great. If anyone needs more, assistance getting in touch with anybody on here, just send me a note and I'm happy to follow up and help you make that connection. So thank you. I hope you get outside and enjoy this beautiful day, even for just a walk or a bike ride or something. It's so nice out. So anyway, take care. Thank you very much. All right. And on
Thanks,
that,
Becca.
I hear my dog barking.
Thanks, Becca. Thanks, Kirsten.
Lunchtime. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.